The Rams bring back John Johnson III. How big of an impact will that have on the Rams secondary? We've got the Rams secondary heading into the 2024 season, and we begin our countdown of the top 20 most important Rams entering the 2024 season. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramley, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, do us a huge favor and subscribe to the fastest growing Rams YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, hit that like button, and also let us know what is your reaction to the Rams bringing back John Johnson III. My name is Doug McCain. Friends call me D-Mac. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMac_LA. I've been covering LA sports for over a decade, 24/7 sports, Bleacher Report, Dodgers Nation, the Rams for Locked On. And as always, I'm joined by the Rams pre-half and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA. He's entering his 9th season covering your Los Angeles Rams. He's known in the streets as the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on the X at Travis Rogers. And on today's show, the Rams bring back John Johnson III. What will his role be? We're going to take a look at that Rams secondary. We're going to start our countdown for the top 20 most important Rams entering the 2024 season. But first, this episode of Locked On Rams is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel, make every moment more. As the playoffs wind down, the sport stops sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost for a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, Travis, so we're going to dive into the re-signing of John Johnson III. But first, ESPN did a report about dieting and players' diets. And I don't know if you saw this, but Puka Nacua does not like eating vegetables. I eat watermelon and I eat pineapples because when it comes to vegetables, I'm not getting it from veggies. I don't do any of those. Instead, he replaces those with the fruits. So, hey, first all I got to say is if I was a kid, I'd be using this and saying, hey, Mom, see Puka Nacua, he doesn't eat vegetables. Hey, Look how big and strong he is. He's a great NFL player. But, yeah, no veggies for Puka Nacua.
Yeah, I'm with you. If I were a kid, I'd be adding that to my arguments as to why I don't need to clear my plate of the squash and broccoli. I certainly understand that. Let me just say this. And Puka Nacua is a healthy, young, vibrant, dynamic wide receiver, and I'm sure that he's gonna be great all over again. There does become a point in your life where those things become a necessary evil, even if you don't necessarily like them. You need to keep everything moving. You need to make sure that all the stuff that you get from non-fruit related fiber sources are a part of your diet. So enjoy it while you can, Puka, because it doesn't last forever in anybody. Throw some kale on that plate, my man.
Man, for sure. I love snap peas. I mean, tomatoes, I love you some vegetables, but the thing is, I ruin it because I douse it in whatever ranch or whatever dip is available, so it just cancels it out, whatever the good parts of it. But still, he'll learn. Matt, he'll be first ballot Hall of Famer if he starts eating vegetables regularly. So that's definitely something to think about. But the Rams, they bring back John Johnson III. I think really the interesting thing about Johnson is the role he's going to have for this team when you look at the depth, because Jordan Fuller, he's gone. If you look at last season, Russ Yeast started the first 9 games, and then John Johnson, he comes in, and towards the end of the season, he was looking like the John Johnson III of old. And I think this kind of speaks to his relationship with this Rams team, this organization. He said before that Sean McVay is the best coach he's ever played for. He only wants to play for the Rams. So great culture guy. There's the familiarity factor. He knows the system, and he's also great depth if any of these guys go down. So really, it's an insurance policy that has the upside to start, has proven that in the past.
Yeah, I think what this is a basic level of competency that you can always count on, right? That you'd like to maybe be a little bit better at that position, that maybe you'd want a little more upside, to use the terminology, but you know exactly what you're getting with John Johnson. Maybe it's not an all-pro caliber player there, but you know what you can count on. And this is the thing. You hear coaches talk about this, whether it's in the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, or whatever it is. can I book on what you're going to give me? Do I know the performance that you're going to give me more often than not? That's incredibly valuable to a coach. That the idea, the guy that gives you an A half the time and a C half the time is not as valuable as a guy that gives you a B every time. Because I can count on the guy that gives me a B every time. It may average out to the same thing, but the guy that shows up and gives me the same performance week after week, game after game, is an incredibly valuable player. And I think that's what John Johnson does, is just a base level of competency. And anybody that has listened to this program, the everydayers certainly know this. I use the word competent as an incredibly high compliment. I think that being able to give the same performance day after day, week after week, month after month is a great skill, and I think he can do that.
Yeah, competent in the NFL means you're doing something at your job better than most people on the planet. So it's definitely not a slight or anything like that. And you look at the bargain, they got him for a little over $1 million last year. He signed that big deal with the Browns, 3 years, $33.75 million. Really didn't work out in the scheme that they were using him in. Yeah. But with the Rams last season, he proved that he can do again this year what he did last year, where he doesn't have to start the season. If he does, that either it means, one, they suffered some injuries, two, guys didn't work out or play up to their potential like they had hoped. But to have a guy that doesn't necessarily need to start but can start, I think it's big for a team like the Rams. Because last season, he played in 17 games, made 8 starts, had 2 picks with 42 total tackles, had 6 pass breakups. That was the most since 2020. So he does still have something left in the tank. And I think for John Johnson III, great culture guy. Fans love him. And I love the way, too, he was hinting at it. If you saw us on his Instagram, on his social media, he was doing a little Jordan Belfort stuff from The Wolf of Wall Street, like, I'm not effing leaving. I'm not effing leaving. So creativity for him, too. So great to have him back in the horns.
Yeah, it is. And look, this is one of the things that you never really want to talk about, that you never really, it feels like you're bringing bad luck into the conversation. But the fact of the matter is, you're going to need depth pieces, guys that you never plan on starting, guys that you hope don't have to start or going to start, that your depth becomes incredibly valuable. Nobody goes through the season with the 22 starters they have and finishes it with the same 22 guys. If you can get through with, 15 or 16, you've done a really good job. The fact of the matter is, you're probably down in the 12, 13, 14 range. So having a guy that you can put in there, maybe as a depth piece, but maybe as an emergency starter, maybe to put somebody in there like you mentioned, D-Mac, who isn't performing at the level that you hoped, and you want to get back to that basic competency level. John Johnson checks a lot of those boxes.
Yeah, we're going to dive into his role and what this means specifically for some of the other Rams players on the secondary. But before we get there, I think, too, it's really important for Chris Shula to have guys like John Johnson in his first year as defensive coordinator. Aaron Donald, he's no longer here for now. Pray that changes. But having guys like that in the culture, Chris Shula, I think, it's to his best advantage to lean on guys like John Johnson III, guys that players respect, to really have a good start to his career. Because I think that's one of the biggest questions entering this season. He's going to need all the help that he can get, and Johnson definitely is additive in that respect.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm glad you brought that up. I hadn't really thought of it like that, but you're 100% right that there are a lot of new faces in this defense. There's a lot of new guys that are going to be asked to do different things, and having somebody that has been through it, somebody that you can rely on, like we've talked about, especially as a first-time coach. You brought it up too. This is something that we should probably talk about in depth at another point on Locked On Rams. Is just Chris Shula's role on this team and what the expectations are. That Raheem Morris was a dude, right? He was a head coach that was running half of your team that is no longer there. And a lot of that's going to land on Shula, and the more veterans he has around, the better.
Totally agree, because that is something that could percolate and grow into a social media type of topic. If the Rams defense struggles, McVay's just hiring his buddies, his cronies, da-da-da. Will start so quickly, it'll spread like wildfire. So yeah, it's definitely important for him to get off to a good start and really take advantage of this talent that they brought in, because they've definitely infused this defense with some secondary talent. The question is, will they hit on them? But coming up next, I think the most important part of this is, what does John Johnson being back with the Rams mean for the other Rams in the secondary? That's coming up next here on Locked On Rams.
All right, let's talk a little bit about FanDuel, D-Mac, right? You know how much I love sports. You love sports. We love them so much that you never want it to stop, right? But as the playoffs wind down, we're just about into the middle of the summer, right? Which means there's a lot going on. We get fewer games, maybe, but the sports aren't sportsing the way that you want them to. Nah, it's not true. Not at FanDuel. Let you keep the sports going whenever you want. All you have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime you want, and you are good to go. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up everybody, all customers, with a boost or a bonus daily. You heard me right, daily. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. There is golf at FanDuel. You know what I've kind of found myself into? People are going to think I'm making this up if you've ever heard me talk about this before. Soccer, right? I got into the Euros. I got into Copa, all of these things. And FanDuel, well, let's just say FanDuel had a lot to do with me becoming a soccer fan all of a sudden. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball, and just basically having an awesome time.
And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday, free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Just a reminder, we're at 3 shows a week up until July 15th, and that's when we'll be back to full-time Monday through Friday. So definitely be on the lookout for that. Also, too, we're going to start doing some mailbag episodes again. So if you want your question answered on a Friday edition of Locked On Rams, be sure to drop those questions down below, and Travis and I will dive into those. Also, a super shout out to our everyday listeners out there. I want to thank you for watching and listening to every single episode of Locked On Rams. If you haven't yet, join that Everyday Listeners Club too. A little pre-training camp special right now. Membership right now is 100% free. You just have to watch and listen to every single episode, and you won't miss a thing about your Los Angeles Rams. All right, Travis, picking it up in the second segment here. Talk a little secondary depth, but really picking up on John Johnson. So he's not guaranteed a starting spot or anything like that. The question is, how will this kind of trickle down? Because if you look at what role he'll play, Cameron Curl, he's going to be one of the 2 starting safeties. Quentin Lake, I think, is the big question here, because he's basically going to be switching positions from slot corner, he had some star last year, to the safety spot. He's going to be in the mix for a first-team role. And then Cameron Kitchens, who they drafted out of the U, he's someone that is going to try to push for playing time as well. So Russ Yeast, he was a starter over the first half of the year, and then he ends up getting supplanted by John Johnson the second half. He's supposed to go to the star role too. So a lot of big questions for this Rams secondary heading into this season. I think John Johnson is someone who's just going to be waiting in the wings for his opportunity if something doesn't go right for one of the Rams they expect to start in one of those roles.
I think that's exactly right. I think this is okay, we have John Johnson, who we know can do this. Let's see what these other guys are capable of doing. We'll talk about like Lake, for instance. You talk about taking him out of that slot corner and putting him into a safety position potentially. If it works, fantastic. Now you have some depth at that position. If it doesn't, Johnson gives you some flexibility there. Kitchens and some other guys that you mentioned. All of these are intriguing ideas. All of these are players that you hope take that step to that next level, or ready to step into the NFL. And you know, depending on who we're talking about individually. But what I think Johnson does specifically is it allows everybody to learn on the job a little bit for a period of time. Again, the Rams are in that window, right? The Rams are trying to win right now. The Rams, I think, kind of juiced the system by getting into the playoffs maybe a little bit ahead of time a year ago. And now it's no more learning, right? It's no more, well, let's see how this goes after a month or two. Let's see how this looks like after week 6 or 7. The pressure is going to be on. No Aaron Donald. New defensive coordinator, excuse me. And all of a sudden, you've got all of these guys are going to be asked to be doing things from maybe a big difference to maybe a slight difference. And the more guys you have that can fit more spots like a Johnson, the better off that you are.
Yeah, and he's only 20 years old, right? It's not like he's old or anything like that.
Right.
He presumably has a lot more tread on the tires, and he's also hungry and happy to be back again for the third time with this organization. So I think it really comes down to, one, the fact that he's a massive upgrade and he's better than Jason Taylor. So what does that mean for Jason Taylor? And then 2, if you do move Lake back to nickel, then he's competing with with Kinchins for starting reps there at the safety spot because we know Curl's going to be starting at the other one. I think that's interesting as well. I think when you look at the secondary as a whole, of course, you got Tre'Davious White, you got Darius Williams as the two starting outside guys, and then Durant, who really had an underwhelming year in his sophomore season, a little bit of a step back last season. I think you look at him as the first backup. And then, honestly, I really do like Lake there in the slot. I think he can be dynamic there. It's just a matter of what they want to do in that role.
Durant's the wild card, right? Durant is the one that you just like. There's almost nothing in the option tree that would totally blow me away other than he develops into an all-pro. Could he develop into a functioning starter? Yeah, I think there's a world that exists where that happens. I don't know if I'd bet on it a ton, but is there a world where he's good enough? Yeah. Is there a world where he's not good enough and you really can't use him? Yeah, there is. So I think you need to have as many different guys that can do as many different spots. If he locks down one of those spots, it gives you great optionality really across the secondary if he's really good. If he's not, all of a sudden everybody else needs to be a little better. I think it puts pressure on Tre'Davious White. It puts pressure on Darius Williams and these sorts of guys. But the more depth you have, and really talking about Durant at this point, he's a depth piece more than anything else. It just gives you more options, whether it's injury options, whether it's performance options. It allows you to do more things with more guys.
It does, and that's kind of been one of the issues with this Rams secondary is a lack of depth, a lack of top-end talent. Really, when you look at the draft, since Janoris Jenkins, Tremaine Johnson, guys like that, they haven't really hit on too many secondary pieces. And if you do move Lake back to the slot corner, you kind of balance out the corners and the safeties. And that's kind of what his dad did, Carnell Lake, right? He goes from safety to cornerback. And I was like, what college did let me look it up right now.
I was waiting.
Carnell Lake. And,
I was
UCLA guy. So
what are the odds?
Great story. Some Bruins in the hometown. I mean, Quinn Lake. So I just think a star in the star role is something that has the potential to be. Now, take a look at where they stand right now as far as the depth in the secondary. You got 10 guys. I think you got 10 guys last year, 10 guys this year. Darius Williams, Trey White, Cam Curl, Kobe Durant, Quinn Lake, Darion Kendrick, John Johnson III, Russ Yeast, Trey Tomlinson, who we'll see if he has a big breakout year. I think he still has all the talent in the world to do that. Then Cameron Kinchins. So really, I think this is going to make Jason Taylor the odd man out when it comes to the secondary depth.
Okay, so here's one thing we haven't mentioned with all of this. The kickoff rules, right? These defensive guys, the safeties, the corners, and some other positions, these are the guys that traditionally make up a good chunk of your special teams units. We just don't know how those special teams units are gonna look, how they're gonna be organized, how they're gonna function. Do you want speed and athleticism? Do you want size and power? What exactly is it you're looking for from this particular group? So I think that when the special teams units are being considered, a lot of this is going to have a trickle-down effect on what it does to your linebackers, what it does to your defensive line depth, what it does to your secondary depth. Is that new kickoff rule that no one is entirely sure how it's going to look like and who the best personnel groupings are going to be. I think that has a ton of impact on what we're talking about with the depth, whether it's a Tomlinson, whether it's a Taylor, whoever it may be. Somebody that can make themselves a little bit more value in a special teams unit has a big advantage.
Absolutely, Travis, because, by definition, they're a safety, but at that point, when you're deeper in the depth chart, it's really what's your role going to be on special teams. So, it's a fantastic point. And also, too, wanted to bring this up now that you remind me of something we haven't talked about, and I know that you'll care a lot about this, is Joshua Carty. You're a big fan of the Carty parties. He's number 43, and that's John Johnson III's number.
Yeah,
what are they going to do there? Is he going to have to pull an Ohtani and give him a Porsche? Maybe he'll give him like a Ford Focus. I don't know if he can afford a Porsche.
I don't know if John Johnson has Ohtani sort of resources, so they may have to work out. I don't know. He can buy him an Uber for a week or something like that. I don't know what it is. But, no Porsche coming his way.
For sure. But they got to figure that out because I don't like seeing guys on the same team when they return on different numbers. That freaks me out a little bit. You know what I mean? So I need him back in 43. Cardi, look, we know we have high expectations, but let's not forget, man, you're a kicker at the end of the day. I mean, John,
Yep.
let's no disrespect, but let's give John Johns III his number 43 back. But coming up next on Locked On Rams, we're starting our countdown of the top 20 Rams entering the 2024 season. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
Passion, drive, and patience, right? The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything that you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and a whole lot more. So whether you are into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your parts guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you are burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices that you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive, easy for me to say, at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply, eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, special shout out to every listeners out there. Really, really appreciate you guys watching, listening to every single episode of Locked On Rams. But here in our third segment, we're starting our countdown, the top 20 Rams entering the 2024 seasons according to their importance to the team's success. And we're starting with new Ram. We talked about him a little bit in the previous segment, and that is Cameron Curl. And I think Cameron Curl could go down as one of the best value signings in the offseason. When you look at the safety market, there was a lot of quality safeties. They were just sitting around. The Rams took advantage of that by bringing in Cameron Curl. And you look at Jordan Fuller, he ends up signing with the Carolina Panthers, so you absolutely had to add someone to that position. And they give him a deal 2 years worth up to $9 million. And he's someone that's not a big turnover machine, but he's great at the line of scrimmage, great in the run game. And I think he's going to be a big boost for this team. And I think that he's going to really be a player that Rams fans are going to fall in love with very quickly.
So this keep in mind, I understand that positions are different here, but this reminds me so much of a previous deal that the Rams had done with another former Buffalo Bills player, Nickel Roby-Coleman. This is a guy that came in that was a little bit under the radar, that wasn't a big name, that's somebody that's like, okay, let's see how this works out, and all of a sudden became an incredibly valuable player to the Rams. I know Nickel Roby-Coleman's the guy we think of when he hit Tommy Lee Lewis in that Saints game and the flag didn't come out. That was a nice little bonus for Nickel Roby-Coleman there. But these are the sort of guys that, hey, you know what? That guy's making a big difference on the team. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He's making a big play here or there. He's incredibly reliable. He's incredibly consistent. He's incredibly competent. And I think that Curl has the ability to maybe do that as well. He's not going to be a guy, you're not going to see a bunch of Cameron Curl jerseys in the stands. You're not going to see, when we're talking about it on the postgame show on ESPN 710, I don't know if his name is going to come up a million different times after each and every game. But at the end, that's probably a good thing, right? You know whose name comes up a lot? Durant's. You know whose name came up a lot? Of guys that are getting beat over and over again. So I'm very optimistic about having him just be a very consistent, steady piece at the back end of that defense.
I agree. He's not going to be someone that's going to wow you with big playmaking ability, right? He's picked up 0 passes. He's had no interceptions since 2021. But where he's at his best is around the line of scrimmage. And he's someone that can come down and make plays in the box. You can use him in the dime linebacker role, and you can use him in passing situations where he can go out there and be physical and match up with tight end. So he's one of those glue guys that is going to do a lot of things that aren't going to make the highlights, but he's also going to do a lot of things that are going to help this team win a ton of games. So definitely think he's going to be big time for this team. And two, like I said, Jordan Fuller's out. You look for another captain, another leader on this team. I think he's going to be a guy that does it by example. And you look at his experience. He's only 25 years old. He's played almost 3,500 snaps in his career in the last 4 years. He's made 300 tackles. So he's been consistently good to great at times. And I think that that's exactly what this Rams defense needs.
Competency. I know I'm a broken record. I know the everydayers are probably like, yeah, Trav, we get it. I'm telling you, somebody that gives you a performance that is same as the performance they gave you the week before, that's the same as the performance they're going to give you next week. You can take it to the bank. You can scheme around it. If I know exactly what it is you're going to give me, now I can go work on this player over here. I can work on this scheme over there. I don't have to worry about, hey, is he going to have a good day or a bad day? I know there's always some variance in every single player, but what makes a really valuable guy, in my opinion, is somebody that gives you the same thing day after day, week after week, and I think that he can be one of those guys. It's like we kicked off the show talking about John Johnson with this. It does an A+ every day, sure, we all want that. That's Aaron Donald. Good luck finding another one of those. But you give me a guy that's a B every single week, I'll take it all day long.
Yeah, and it's honestly really fun to watch the Rams safety play because they don't use safeties in the traditional sense, and you're going to see them do the same thing with Crow. He's going to be all over the field. He's going to be in the slot. He's going to be in the box. You're going to see him back deep. So you're going to see him all over the field making plays, but not necessarily turnovers. But hey, who knows? That could change. Maybe that's a point of emphasis for him. Last year, 115 tackles, 3 TFLs, 5 pass defense, 1 forced fumble, 3 QB hits, 1 sack. So he can do a lot of different things to help this team. And I think he's going to be big next year for the Rams. But that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMac_LA. And you can follow the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers, at Travis Rogers. And until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.